Most people don't realize there are two very different kinds of stress. They cross from one into the other without notice. And today we're going to talk about the difference between those two stresses, energetic stress and survival stress, why the body experiences them so differently, and how so many high achievers end up burning out while thinking that they're actually doing things to support their health and performance, but in reality, they're actually quietly crossing from energetic stress over
Welcome
to
to the Wealthy
survival
Life
stress.
podcast, the space where high performers rebuild the internal operating system behind their success. I'm your host, Deanna. Each week, we explore the nervous system, biology, identity, emotional patterns, and capacity that help you shift out of survival mode and into grounded, coherent, sustainable performance. Let's begin. Energetic stress is very short-term, responsive, and adaptive stress. It happens when, let's say, you have a meaningful challenge in front of you that you find very, very interesting and very curiosity-driven and challenge-driven, motivating. When there's a clear start and a clear finish to your challenge, to the task at hand, your body mobilizes energy and then shuts it off. You get that sudden burst of adrenaline, for example, when a car swerves into your lane and you just gotta react very quickly and instinctively. That is your energetic stress. Biologically, this looks like temporary activation of your nervous system. Stress hormones rise just enough to sharpen focus and give you access to physical and mental energy. Once the task is done, your system is meant to come back down. Your heart rate slows back down, your muscles release and relax, and your breathing rate drops. The depth of your breath deepens, and your digestion resumes. Immune system goes back to normal functioning. This is a type of stress your body is designed for. Think of our ancestors. Think of how animals go through their stress cycles. Think of preparation for a presentation, and once the presentation is over, ideally, your stress goes down. Training for a competition with adequate recovery, there is recovery in between your intense bouts of training. Busy workday followed by high quality recovery, and then you can go at 100% again tomorrow, the next day. Stress turns on, but stress also turns off. Think of it as a superpower you have. You can activate it as you need it and then deactivate it when it's done. In order for it to be activated 100%, the superpower you have, you need to be able to recharge it. Think of Formula One cars. They're intentionally used for their maximum power, and when it's not used, is meticulously maintained to ensure its performance. It has pit stops even during its racing time. So it's not just going around the tracks over and over and over again during the entire race. Now I hope you're catching on. The issue isn't stress itself. The issue is what happens when activation never fully resolves. For many high performers, the nervous system doesn't get the signal that the threat or demand is over. The body stays tense and the mind is constantly spinning. A lot of people say, I just can't turn my brain off. Even when nothing is happening, when there's nothing going on, the presentation is over, the project is over, the pitch is over. And at first, this feels subtle. You might be tired, but wired. In your mind, it might feel like excitement, a little bit of a residual or hangover from whatever sprint race that you just did at work or in life or in relationships. Rest might not feel restorative to you, and you're productive, but you never feel like you're fully settled, comfortable, or good, or the same in your body. And this is when that energetic stress starts to shift into survival stress. When stress stops being a tool and a superpower, it's when the nervous system starts treating life itself as a threat. Not just the task in front of you, not just the challenge in front of you. Instead of responding to specific challenges and tasks, the body stays in a state of anticipation. Your muscles are constantly tight. Your neck is constantly engaged and popping out. Your shoulders are always riding up to your ears. Breathing is chronically shallow. A lot of people breathe in their neck and in their shoulders. They don't even breathe down to their chest. And you might be fixated on what might be wrong, what might go wrong, what is wrong. In this case, the system is no longer actively creating or responding to your reality in this present moment. Instead, it is now generating internal predictions from past experiences, and it sees reality from that lens and then reacts to it. Let me say that again. The system is no longer actively creating or responding to reality in this present moment, this second, this minute, right now. Instead, it generates internal predictions from your past experiences, projecting that onto the present as well as the future, and sees your reality from that lens and reacting to your present moment and even to your future moment through that lens. The nervous system itself is designed to keep you alive, not happy, not successful, not calm. It prioritizes familiarity and safety, even if that familiarity is stress. So if your system has learned that pressure, urgency, or self-sacrifice equals safety, belonging, validation, success, it will keep recreating those conditions because it generates internal predictions, is constantly making these predictions from past experiences and sees your reality from that lens. Survival stress fundamentally changes your reality. As I just repeated the same sentence 3 times. It changes how you perceive your reality without you even noticing that you are now biased and skewed in how you view your reality. Everything is seen from the perspective of threat, survival, and conservation. Your brain and body no longer responds to what's actually happening in front of you, only to what is expected to happen from, you guessed it, past experiences. It's like when you're in a crappy mood, for example, we've all had those days, right? We've all had days where we just think that, oh, this is just one of those days that nothing is going my way. Everything you see irritates you. Everyone you talk to feel like they're intentionally trying to piss you off. It feels like the world is against you. That's because we have that lens on, is the opposite of the rose-colored glasses in this case. Because your nervous system is a prediction machine. Its primary job is not to analyze truth or context when you're in a state of chronic stress and burnout, but to anticipate threats and conserve energy to keep you alive. It thinks that the past threats that you've gone through, you've maybe even resolved, but has not fully completed or closed that loop. It will continue to try to predict it in order to protect you. It's much more sensitive and has a much lower threshold in shifting into protective mode when you're in sympathetic activation or have been in sympathetic activation for a while. Physiologically, this changes everything. Instead of brief spikes of stress hormones that rise and fall, your body maintains a low grade but constant sympathetic activation. Cortisol no longer follows a healthy rhythm. We'll talk about cortisol rhythm in another episode. Adrenaline and noradrenaline are released preemptively, not in response to real challenges, but again, in anticipation of one. The brain is almost like the scout and the leader ahead of the pack, looking out, searching for threats. What's next? What could go wrong? What do I need to stay on top of in order to protect my people, my pack? And in this case, is trying to protect you. This predictive state tightens the body before the threat arrives. Your muscles is constantly subtly contracted. A lot of the times, of course, we adapt to it. We don't even notice that our body or our muscles are tight, especially in the jaws, neck, shoulders, hips. pelvic floor as well. Breathing shifts upwards into the chest, like I said earlier, into the neck, into the shoulders. It becomes faster but shallower, and the body is preparing for action. I'm sure you've seen people who are angry, who are ready to pounce on something or somebody, and that's how we're constantly breathing, but at a little bit less of an intensity in comparison to when someone is really riled up and ready to go. You likely know somebody who is constantly in this state. They just seem tense all the time. Maybe this is even yourself. Your blood flow is redirected from digestion, immune repair, long-term maintenance, and instead they're rushed towards the heart, lungs, and large muscles because, again, your body is trying to protect you. When the nervous system believes there's ongoing threat, it will put repair and digestion at a later time. Your resources are prioritized for immediate survival, not long-term health. So one of the first systems to change is the immune system. We'll talk about this one in more depth in a later episode. I want to highlight actually a client case here who actually developed an autoimmune condition after years of chronic burnout and chronic stress. Body always has its way of communication and its way of getting your attention. In a survival state, the body increases pro-inflammatory signaling. Inflammation is protective, just like stress itself is very protective for the short term. It helps you respond quickly to injury, infections, even danger. It prepares tissues for potential damage and mobilizes immune cells where they might be needed. For example, when you have a cut, your white blood cells rush in to prevent infections from happening at the site of the wound. The problem is that this response was only designed for short bursts, not months or years. When stress becomes predictive and chronic, low-grade inflammation becomes your background state, is constantly running in the background. The immune system stays slightly activated all the time, even when there is no actual injury or infection to resolve. And of course, digestion slows as well. And we'll talk about digestion in more depth in a later episode as well. Blood flow is directed away from the gut and of course towards the muscles and vital organs needed for action, for you to get away from danger. Stomach acid production changes, your gut motility becomes irregular, the lining of the gut becomes more sensitive to stress hormones, and that's why people get a lot of bloating, constipation when they're going through bouts of chronic stress, when they're in a very, very stressed state. For some people, motility decreases, and for others, motility increases. So it really depends on what your body does in that state of stress. You don't need to digest or absorb nutrients efficiently if you're about to run or fight for your life. And in modern life, this shows up, of course, as bloating, like I talked about, food sensitivities, acid reflux, constipation, inconsistent appetite as well. Even when you are eating a very quote unquote healthy diet, you will still experience these symptoms if your nervous system is not at a state where your body can just relax and digest and process and absorb the nutrients. Next up, sleep. We'll dive a lot deeper into sleep as well. Your brain has to be vigilant in order for it to see threats, see danger. Deep sleep, the stage that's responsible for your cellular repair, your memory consolidation, and allowing your nervous system to reset every single night. That deep sleep is much harder to access when, of course, you're in chronic low-grade sympathetic nervous system activation. You might fall asleep, but the quality is shallow and low. And that's why you don't wake up refreshed, or sometimes you don't feel like you slept at all. Of course, we can't talk about chronic stress without talking about muscle tension. Your body is constantly experiencing aches and pains in the joints and the muscles, and you're chronically in this state where you're just feeling tight. Chronic stress alters how efficiently your cells produce energy. We'll, of course, talk about mitochondria cell health in this podcast as well. Instead of creating energy cleanly and sustainably within your cells, the body shifts towards faster and less efficient pathways that are useful in emergencies, but very, very costly over time. So you might still be functioning on a day-to-day basis. You might look okay on the outside, but your system is actually going to deficit, going into that debt we spoke about in previous episodes. Physical, mental, emotional, energetic debt. Your inflammation is constant, as we mentioned earlier, and that recovery just can't catch up. And if you really think about it, you're losing not only your quality of life, but also eventually your length of life as well. And because these changes happen gradually, most people don't connect their fatigue, brain fog, digestive issues, or recurring injuries back to a nervous system that was never allowed to rest and let the guard down. So over time, the nervous system actually starts to treat your mental load, the emotional responsibility you take on, that constant future pacing, future oriented pressure, the same way it would treat actual physical danger, something coming out at you, a tiger running after you. And in this state, when you're really, really feeling that depletion, email notifications is going to feel like a drag. You're going to feel maybe avoidant even. You don't want to respond to those emails. You don't even want to look at those emails. You might have a calendar filled with events that used to excite you, but now it makes you want to duck in a corner and just cry. I used to feel like that. And even rest feels uncomfortable, suspicious even, because when you rest, it removes the constant scanning that your system has learned to rely on as a safety mechanism. Now you're left alone with the signals from the body. I want to share an example of actually multiple clients who've gone through this. And I don't say this in a way that's, judgmental or anything. We all do this. But I have a few clients who they were constantly neglecting their bodies because work always came first. It was very natural for them to neglect, to ignore their bodies because they did that for most of their lives. As kids, they were taught to work hard, never take a break, because if you do take a break, rest will make you seem weak. It will make you fall behind. That was what they grew up with, and that's what they continue to do. When they started taking more breaks, when they started to tune into their body and reconnect to their body, it was really, really scary for them. I have a client who was constantly worried about having a DVT, a deep vein thrombosis. So essentially it's just a blood clot that is in the leg, and you feel a lot of pain, and eventually it will travel to the lungs and it causes very severe issues. He was really worried about that. And every time he tuned into his body, he just started feeling this pain in his leg that he was constantly concerned about. But whenever he turned to work, that pain would go away. So it became this vicious loop that caused him to never want to sit in a quiet room or in a quiet space where there's no sound. Whenever he's quiet and by himself, that pain would come in and he would start feeling this sensation. And of course, he got his test done, imaging, all that, and everything's fine. Everything turned out negative. But it's just the thought. On one of our calls one day, I asked him, have you ever thought about talking to the pain? I know this sounds a little bit strange. It's that connection that we've lost with our body, and the body's always trying to talk to us and communicate with us. He started actually communicating with his pain and asking in a very compassionate way what the pain is trying to tell him. When he started tuning more into that pain, paying more attention and giving it more time and kind, loving energy, that pain actually started going away. Now it's not even there anymore. It took months for him to get to where he is. And now he can sit in a room and he can meditate, he can do breath work, and he can sit with his thoughts. It was a really scary process for him, regardless. Noticing that pain was feeding into his avoidant behavior of, I don't want to be silent. I don't want to just sit with myself in the pain. I don't want to sit with myself in the silence. I don't want to notice. I don't want to connect to this person that I never really had a chance to connect to, even though I've been living with this person for however many decades. And by this person, I mean is you. We live with ourselves every single day, and we will continue to live with ourselves until the end of our life. So better start getting to know your roommate really, really well. And the signals your body sends are always trying to tell you something. And if you don't pay attention to what your body is trying to say, then the body will continue to carry the past into the future. Rather than responding and seeing reality from a more objective way, from a bigger picture perspective, the body preloads stress to predict. The brain builds that internal model of the world based on your past experiences. If in your past, success, safety, or belonging were paired with urgency, self-sacrifice, pushing through, ignoring your body, abandoning yourself, your values, your own needs, then the nervous system assumes that those conditions must stay in place to prevent loss, to prevent you losing control, losing validation, losing everything that you've built for yourself. So it creates that tension before tension is even needed. Like the body braces and the muscles tense up when it knows you're about to fall. It's a built-in safety mechanism, except in this case, you're actually not going to get into any kind of actual danger. Your body releases stress hormones before a problem even exists, and it keeps you alert even when nothing is wrong. So that's why survival stress doesn't feel as dramatic. It feels normal. There is no panic involved. There is no sudden change. You're still functioning. You're still living your everyday life, but your body is living in a state as if your next demand, threat, a bear, a car, and an unfortunate news is just around the corner, ready to pounce on you. It's like the frog in the boiling pot analogy. The frog sits in this water that starts to boil, but when it notices that this water is too hot and is boiling and is about to kill the frog, it's already too late for the frog to jump out. Because the boiling process is very slow, the frog adapts. So in your body's case, when stress becomes predictive rather than responsive to what is actually happening, it stops being a tool for you. It becomes a state that your body can't exit, like the frog in the boiling pot. Your system has learned that doing and moving keeps you safe. And of course, slowing down, resting, actual real recovery feels really unfamiliar. Therefore, it's potentially threatening to your survival possibilities. We'll get into more of that long-term cost of survival stress in the next episode. For now, just remember that energetic stress has an off switch, but survival stress, it doesn't. Energetic stress supports the life you're building, allows you to recover, then come back and hit it even harder, like a Formula One car. Survival stress keeps you and your body stuck and depleted. It sucks you into this black hole of physical, mental, and emotional and energetic debt. Like the frog in the boiling pot analogy, most people don't cross that line in a very dramatic fashion. They cross us slowly through years of pushing and normalizing tension and signals from the body. So by the time they notice it, is already too late. By this point, you're probably asking, how do I tap more into that energetic stress and get myself out of this survival stress black hole I've been sucked into? The key is to support your body in completing the stress cycle and feeling safe in your body, which we'll get into in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's been carrying too much for too long. And if you're ready to rebuild your internal operating system, join me in the Wealthy Life community or explore my private coaching at deannawrose.com. Until next time, take a breath, trust your body, and stay curious. Let's build your wealthy life.